Sorry, I'm not usually that mean. Welcome, everybody. My name's Orly, for anybody that's new here and doesn't know me, and I'm not normally up here this year for once. John is away. So we're going to kind of just get right into it, but I just want to give one little reminder that he actually made the agenda for me, and he said to make sure that we pass the mics around when we have like critiques and when the photographers are speaking and stuff. So if you're the photographer and it's your time to speak, look for the mic. Don't just stand up and start talking, because it's really difficult for the rest of it, especially the people behind you. It's really hard for them to hear what you're saying. So we are going to start. We had 2 field trips. One was to Writing on Stone just this past weekend that Alicia organized. And the other one was to LA Gallery, and we have some from that night, although it's not of the actual gallery. We're supposed to go either to the mall or to the Galt Museum and catch the sunset after that. So thank you, Chris, for putting the show together, and if it's ready, we'll go ahead. Thank you once again, Chris, for putting that together for us and for everybody who submitted images and went on the field trips. Any questions from anybody? No, we're all good. Our next segment is just a little YouTube video, a YouTube channel, I guess it is, for Photoshop. I thought instead of reinventing the wheel and trying to demonstrate something, I would just show one that I think I really kind of like. This guy, he's really, he goes over things more than once so that you understand it, and he has a whole Photoshop course. Oh, we got it? Hang on. So next on the agenda is our Being There segment. And Alicia, did you want to say anything about it? Or just show it? Or this is okay, so this is Australia, right? Yep. Okay. Anybody have any questions for her?
I'm just wondering if all the wildlife, did you just see it in the wild, or was it in a nature, like a park, or what?
Most of it was in the wild. We did go to the zoo, though, and that's where we got a few of the other ones, and it was pretty cool there.
Tell us how long you were down there.
I was down there for 3 weeks, and we traveled the west coast from Perth to Calgary National Park. So we just stopped wherever and had a lot of fun, and it was awesome. Technically 6 hours, but we kind of... 6 hours plus photography time. Yeah. And stopping and enjoying the ocean and everything else, right? Yeah.
And were you in a camper then? Was that a picture that you were in the vehicle you were in?
No, we just took a truck and drove up. So, yeah.
Was that your first time there? Yes. Very good. Thank you so much for doing that for us. I think we have our guest, Strudelbrand, and I think I will let them introduce themselves because none of us really seem to know a whole lot about it, but they have done some shows on the sculptures that are around, the sculpture and the art that's around Lethbridge, and I think that's kind of what it's about. And where are they? Are you okay with Mike?
I think so. This will be the second time I've ever used a mic, so hopefully this goes well. So we made a film about public art in Lethbridge, and of course the film itself is very long. So this is going to be the little ending piece of it, and we have a screening of the whole thing tomorrow. I feel like, okay, you can hear me? Yes. Okay, now you can definitely hear me, I guess. We have
I wouldn't use it.
Yeah, okay. We have a screening for the whole thing tomorrow, and we have tickets. I mean, it's a free showing, so we don't really need tickets, but we have all the information over there if you want to come out for it. It's at 8:30 tomorrow night, so yeah, it's on the patio at Theoretically Brewery.
Yes. Brewery.
Yeah. So this is the end of it. Okay, yes, that seems to work. So this is basically just the end of our film. So if you like it, you can see the rest of it. Oh, yeah, Strobrand is basically just, we're here for the love of Lethbridge. What we do is just we want to promote things in Lethbridge that are awesome and people doing things that really putting their heart into things. It's kind of like an art experiment. So what we're doing with this is we just wanted to highlight all the public art in Lethbridge, and it turned out to kind of get away from us because there's a lot of public art in Lethbridge. So, yeah.
There is so much talent in this city. All you have to do is look around for a second. Sure, we have our actual sanctioned art, but we also have people just putting little pieces of themselves out into the universe. Little tiny blinking lights of color, of creativity. And sure, some of it is hidden. Some of it's happening in buildings you didn't even know existed. In quiet rooms. There's art everywhere in this city. So here's my idea. We go around, we find places that are just boring, just bland, like a brick building, a wall, something that's just plain and has no feeling and no voice. Something, it could be an underpass, it could be even the bridge. The bridge would be perfect for this, actually. Anything that looks plain in Lethbridge. Anyway, we take a picture of it. So we take these photos and we get them printed. We get them printed big. Like, I don't know if you can paint on photo paper. You can probably paint on photo paper, right? So we get these pictures and we give them to artists and we say, hey, if this was your canvas, if you had this space to just create whatever you wanted, what would you put there? And then just see what happens. And so we asked. We had this idea and we found some artists who it resonated with, because that's what art does. It connects. It reaches across those boundaries, and we gave these pictures away and kind of just left it out into the universe. I was like, I had to try, right? Like I had to try it, and maybe it doesn't work, but maybe it does. And what if it does? Because I can see a Lethbridge covered in art, but maybe I can't necessarily see a path to how we get there. Maybe I don't have to be the one with those answers. Maybe I don't have to see the path. Maybe I just have to run around with little sparks of inspiration and say, here, take this. This one's yours. So we did that.
further questions for them? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So is your ultimate goal to get as much public space in Lethbridge covered in art?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. And how do you plan on achieving that?
Well, I think it has to be a little bit of a collaborative movement because we are just two people. So, but I think if there's more of public thirst for it, if more people want there to be more art, and our focus more is on local art as opposed to just bringing in artists from other places and having them design something. Yeah.
Right, because you aren't actually working with the city or anybody like that, right? You're just kind of getting out there and trying to create an enthusiasm for art in Lethbridge.
Thanks, Marley. A couple of questions, so maybe I'll come over there so that I can hand the mic back and forth. So first off, how did you find your artists?
That was through Instagram. Two of the artists we had collaborated with before where I just saw their art and I was like, can you paint me something? So we kind of had a little bit of a relationship beforehand. And the other one, we actually met at a real estate open house. And I just asked them, hey, we have no budget, but do you want to be involved in this art project? And we only have 10 days to put this whole thing together. So, yeah, and it worked out. So it was a bit of a risk, but...
So my next question is, you did the filming yourselves. So what were you using for equipment to do the filming on?
I would say about 95% of the film was done with a DJI Mini 3 Pro. It's a lot of cinematic drone filming. The rest of it was either done with a Sony ZV-E10 or the Samsung phone or a Canon camera or a DJI Pocket 2. So, yeah, kind of a very whatever I could get my hands on at the moment because we were really trying to get it done.
And then the last question would just be, and then what did you use as the process to blend all those into the film?
Yeah, so the program that I use for my editing for video is Lightworks. There's a free version, which is fantastic, but it only exports in 720p. And then the paid version, I think, is like $100 a year, and you can export like up to 4K, I think, or 8K. So, yeah, it's a good program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, sorry. I guess I hang on to this.
Anything else?
I'm just curious about the name Strudel brand and where did that originate?
Well, it's kind of a running joke, but I'm celiac, so I can't have wheat, and so I'm obsessed with baked goods. Yeah, and my nickname is Strudel. So, of course, when we needed to put together a business name really quickly, I was like, well, let's just make it about me. No.
Well, it was an inside joke. We would sit together at night after work and kind of joke about how these big corporations, like if we, you know, when you try and call certain areas and they always give you the runaround, you're constantly put to another line, etc. And so we would kind of make a running joke that this company, we would have this massive company and it would be called Strudel Brand. And years later, we started a company and we thought, well, let's call it Strudel Brand, but let's not be like what we used to joke about. So.
Awesome. And I have seen their first film. You haven't made any changes to it. It's the one that I saw. Oh, you have changed it. So the one that I saw, though, it is more what I talked about before, that they are showcasing all of the sculptures and the artwork that is around Lethbridge, not what you're foreseeing kind of thing or whatever. This was the end of their film, but the rest of it is actually showing the artwork and the sculptures around Lethbridge. And is the other two involved in the showing tomorrow, or just your show? No, it's just your show. Okay. Okay, if there's no more, thank you guys. If there is no more, we are going to go on to our critique session, and this is new that we are starting, and it kind of, we had a discussion during the executive meeting that theme is always hard because some people want things really critiqued and some people don't want it critiqued, and we don't really know where to go, whether we're too soft or we're too hard or whatever. So we kind of decided we would have a critique section, and I think some of us misunderstood or took things differently. I understood it as we were going to have a critique session that was completely different than the theme, that they weren't supposed to be the theme images. They were just images that you wanted to have critiqued. However, some people took it as if you wanted your theme images critiqued. And so this time, I think all of the images are actually theme images that they appear to be, that the photographer would like a critique on. So I think what to take out of tonight is to just see how you like leaning towards a hard critique, and whether, because this year all we have left is our June meeting, which is, nothing like this. And then so if you have any voices, whether you would like a section kind of like this next year or not, just to make sure you let us know so that the executive can, consider that for next year, I guess. So George has offered to help me with this section. And so I don't know, there's a few people that put their images into the theme and into the critique section. So if you did, I took your image out of the theme part and it's only in the critique. So I hope that's okay I think there's 2 images that were that way. Byron, you were one, right? So we'll start with critique, and I think we're going to start by announcing who, or go ahead and we'll say whose image this is. And I will ask the photographer to just let us, they can tell us a little bit about the photo, but also because you put it in the critique section, is there something about it that you are especially curious about? And this one is Byron's.
So the theme being rule of odds. So a little while back I presented a similar image using musical notes, but I thought I would revisit the project and use a bunch of different subject matter. In this case, some cards with 3 drops of corn syrup reflecting the image of the cards. So when I create an image like this, of course the 3 drops are the main subject, but I also like to build relationships within the subject itself and relate everything surrounding the main subject back to the main subject. So if you look closely, you can see a number and the number 3 and various groups of 3 that all relate back to the focal point of the image.
Is there anything that you wish you had done better, or that you have questions about how to do it better or not, or you just want to present it and see what happens?
I really wasn't happy with the top drop, that it wasn't perfectly round. But other than that, I was pretty happy with the way this image turned out.
George, do you want to come up here so that we can share the mic? Oh, he's got it? Okay, go ahead and try it from there then.
It's on? Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay.
I'll just say one thing, that George has taken a lot of online workshops, has a lot of connections with some, like Dave Rocha and these photographers who offer workshops and who also offer a critique on images. So he's really educated, I want to say. He's always interested in it and has learned a lot. So that's why I asked him if he would lead this part.
Okay. Yeah, that worked. Before we start, I just want to say that a critique is something that the viewer is looking at, and I wasn't in your mind when you took the picture and things, so I'll make a few comments about the picture. I'll make suggestions. Doesn't mean that you have to do them. Even you don't even have to accept them. This is just my viewpoint, looking at the image for 5 minutes on my screen at home. So, and I'm sure there's other people in the room that might have different opinions and alternate to the opinions I have, but that doesn't matter. It's just the input that you have. The other second thing I would say is that if it's not your image, you should actually pay more attention than if it is your image. And basically because you can learn a lot from looking at other people's pictures and understanding what they did well and what they may or may not want to change on them or whatever. So it's just as important to listen to the critique on images that aren't your own. Okay, so this is Byron's image, and I thought it was a great interpretation of the theme, and there's 3 down, 3 across, and matched in the water droplets. It's very creative and unusual, and Byron does this a lot, and he's very good at it. So I think the main part is, and he described it, is his point of interest is the water droplets, and they're quite in focus, and the rest of them are a little blurred and out of focus. So it really draws the eye to those water droplets. So the depth of field is really good. The cards are soft, and the water droplets are in focus. He used a shallow depth of field by using I think he used a macro lens, Byron, it was a 53 millimeter at f9.5. Was it a macro lens you used?
Close-up. I used a close-up filter.
Okay. So some of the things that I would do differently next time or change and again, it's just my viewpoint. It's not a criticism of the person. It's a critique on the image. So the main subject is in focus, and I love the cards inside mirroring the hearts and the clubs on the left and the right. I would suggest that, and that's the main subject of this image. There's some distractions in this image on the upper left and on the lower right, and that black spot right in the middle center at the top that I'm not sure they add to the story or they add to the image at all. And if it was me, I would be getting rid of those things. So I might crop in a little bit tighter. If you get rid of the one in the middle at the top, then I would move those water droplets up so they're symmetrical with the out of focus ones. And then the other thing that people do is people tend to like to look at diagonal lines instead of straight up and down. I would just take it into Photoshop, use the Command T thing, and just like you saw in the video, and just play with it and try different angles. And you might come back to this exact same angle at the time. But overall, this is very creative and very well done. So thanks for sharing it, Byron.
Just as an added point, they're not water drops.
Oh, that's what I saw, but what are they?
Corn syrup.
Corn syrup.
But it is on glass, right? And then the cards are underneath the glass. You still have a question, Mike? No, you answered the question. I answered it? Okay, sorry. The one critique that I would have is to watch that right side because it's definitely darker with the shading. And I have this all the time when I try to do portraits on a white background that I can't get the background lit the same. So the right side is not lit the same as the left-hand side. And if you're not working with lights, you might just try putting a whiteboard or a pillow or something just to reflect some more light into that right side if you want to fix it while you're shooting. Or you can try using the gradient filter in Lightroom and just brightening up that right-hand side a little bit. And the one on the drop on top, with the rule of odds, the one talk that we were listening to, sometimes it's good to have three things, but to have one of them be odd. So to me, I kind of like that one being not quite perfect on top because it's the odd one, and that's kind of a play on the word of odd, or the rule of odds. Anybody else?
I'd just like to say that I think it's very interesting in the droplets that the red hearts are on the right, but on the background they're on the left.
Yeah, that they flip. They just, yeah, that just happens. It's refraction, right? Is that what it's called, Byron? Yes. Yeah, it's called refraction, so that's what happens when, try it, that's what happens. Is that
because of the mirror or the glass?
No, it's because of the drop and the way it's, because if the drop is round like this, it's not reflecting straight down, it's reflecting this over here, right? So it's reflecting this onto the round part over there, and the hearts are reflecting onto the round part of the water drop over there. It's not like it's reflecting straight up and down, really, because the drops are round kind of thing. Yeah, they're also upside down because of same thing. The 3 that's at the top on the cards is on the bottom of the drops. And the hearts are upside down. And you just have to try it and see. If you do that outside in the rain and you have, a leaf and the water drop is falling down, it will be the same thing. What you're looking through will be. Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. This one is Gail's, I believe. Okay. And I'll just let you talk about it first.
I was at a wool challenge at Center Village Mall last weekend, and so it was my intention to try to find a picture that was a rule of odds, and this was just the best one I took. It's a little noisy in the background because it's in the mall, so there's a lot of kind of distractions in the back, but
awesome. George, you can go ahead.
Okay, I really love this image by Gail Shaw. It's really good. It's easy to identify the subject. The spools of string fill the frame with enough breathing space on either side and up and down. So it was quite pleasing to look at. The depth of field is exceptional to blur what could have been a distracting background if it was in focus. So I think Gail did a great job in blurring that background. She used a 49 millimeter lens on an 45 millimeters on an 18 to 55 lens at f5.6. The light coming in from the right casts a shadow and provides more dimension to the image. So if you can see the shadows on the just below the spools, they create depth when you see that. So I think her composition is well done, and I think Gail did a great job on this. My suggestions are in the upper left, in the brightest part of the picture. I would just darken it a little bit. It just draws your eye right to the top left, and then you got that little piece hanging out on the top left there that I would try to remove, if that is your ethics. The wooden wheel on the right edge is quite distracting. My suggestion would be to either move over and get a little more of it in your frame so that it doesn't look like an accident as it does sort of here. So if you just saw, you don't need to see the whole thing. You just need to see more of it, I think, would be my suggestion. And if you just had the string sort of leading out of the frame, it would create a lot of curiosity. I would suggest putting more contrast on those spools, and I would brighten the brights and darken the shadows, and so you can either do that with dodge and burn in Lightroom and local adjustments, but it would just add a little more depth as well to the image. So overall, it's a very pleasing image to look at. It's a great subject, and it's nice lighting. Very well done, Gail.
Awesome. Thank you, George. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Or I too like this image. I played around with it a little bit just to see what I could do, and really there isn't much. If you really wanted to play with it, you would, like George was talking about, playing with dodging and burning and adding more texture in with the wool that's on there or whatever. That's pretty detailed. It's wonderful the way it is. And I also like, again, on this one, because one spool is different than the other two. Two of them are basically full and the one is empty. So that's another, again, play on the rule of odds. So we can go to the next one. And this one is gourds.
So 3 adults and a 2-year-old went to the Calgary Zoo, and I was allowed to take pictures a little bit. And this was the only real sort of rule of odds composition that I encountered that day. It was close to what I was looking for. The one giraffe's a little out of focus, so I was a little disappointed that I missed the focus on that. But other than that, I kind of like it myself. So, what do you have to say, George?
I thought, Gord, you captured the theme perfectly with the rule of odds. It's very easy to identify the subject in this image. It's 3 giraffes. It provides intrigue. I like what you did with, you silhouetted the middle one and brightened the other 2. So it provides intrigue by silhouetting that center giraffe and draws from dark to bright and back to dark. So it's a nice compositional trick, and I think it works very well in this particular image. I couldn't see the camera settings on your image, but one suggestion would be to blur that background a little more. It's you've got to distinguish from sharp to, it's a little bit soft in the back, but I think there's the detail in those trees back there keep bringing my eyes back to it. So I would tend to want to blur it a little more, and then that umbrella or gazebo or whatever it is if that was blurred a little more, that would keep your eyes right on those 3 giraffes. And so those are very minor comments, and I think a little more blur in the background would be less of a distraction. So the only other thing I would say is I'm not sure whether it seems like a center composition to me, and so I would actually move that right edge in so that it's about the same distance from the edge as that giraffe on the left. So it's just a suggestion. So overall, I think this was like really well done, and an image that I think most people would be proud to have in their portfolio.
What I find interesting about this is we have some giraffe, which you think Africa, and the background just makes it like snow. And I'm thinking, just adds a bit of juxtaposition to the whole thing. It's probably not snow, it's just probably bright, but it just kind of looks snow-like. So you look at these giraffe in the wintertime. That's my view. Next is Mike.
Okay, well, first thing, Gord, you're an adult and you can demand photography time. You have to stand up for yourself. I just wanted to say I really like the catch light in the center giraffe's eye. I just keep going to that, and I think it's a nice, strong photograph.
And I just want to say the center giraffe is coming into an enclosure, right? That's why he's dark. And the other two are outside in the snow.
I'm a big fan of black and white, but I wonder if this were in color, if it would enhance those three giraffes over the background a bit. Did you have to make a decision, or were you just always intending for this black and white?
Okay, first of all, everything looks better in black and white, okay? George's comment about distractions are valid as far as the trees go, but that gazebo, whatever that thing is on the left, also had quite a bit of color in it as well, and that would have drawn your eye away from the giraffes, which really was the turning point in making this black and white.
I also like how the gazebo points down at an angle that kind of lines up with the giraffe on the right-hand side, and then that tree that's across brings you over and up to the other giraffe, so it kind of creates, for me, its own little circle, just how it is.
Yeah, I do find when it's really bright outside that sometimes that's a distraction because the highlights are too bright and the yellows are too yellow and whatnot. And when you change it to black and white, you don't notice because it's white. White is white, whether it's blown out or not, right? So I think the black and white was an excellent choice. So next one. This is John's.
I was concentrating mainly on the one flying, and it just happened to be that I got all three of them in the picture. That's about all I can say about that. It's wildlife. You get a few seconds to get the shot, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Killdeer.
That wasn't a few seconds, John. That was one over 1/1600 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens fast. And when you're using manual and you're trying to focus on it, my concern was getting the one flying. Elizabeth Hall wetlands, yeah. No, I shoot right off, just offhand.
You say you did manual focus?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to move fast.
Where did he fly from? Where was
He was actually on the ground and then just flew straight up.
So he was just taking off.
Yeah. There was actually about 5 in a bunch, and then they kind of parted, having a little rendezvous. Okay, George.
You sound like this is terrible.
You shot wildlife, you notice, like.
Well, I thought this was captures the theme really well. I think the birds create a really beautiful triangle, which is pleasant to the eye. So you got that bird in the center up in the air, and you got the two on the ground, and there's enough breathing space between the top, the sides, and the bottom to allow that triangle to work really, really, really well. The birds are the brightest elements in this photograph, and really the photographer, John, is saying, look at me. Because as many of you know, that if you want people to look at something, you brighten it. And if you want them not to look at something, you darken it. So I thought that was pretty well done. The dot bird is in the air. It's different from the other two, which adds another element of interest to this photograph. So it's like what Laurelie was saying earlier about the rule of odds, and if one is different than the other two. So I think that really enhanced this photograph. And it's another good use of depth of field. I think some of those stems I would actually darken a little bit, because I don't want my eye to look at them, particularly on the sides. The group on the left-hand edge and the group on the right-hand edge. But that's a very minor issue, and I think I don't really have any other suggestions for this. It's a pretty well done photograph. Overall, it's well composed with a great choice of camera settings for this type of photo. So, John used 100 to 400 at 400 millimeters, but it was shot at 580, so I'm anticipating you had a 1.4x extender on it.
You had your
And,
extender.
and the it was f8, so maybe that's the lowest it could go at that time. And it was shot at 1/1600. So, anyways, great job, John.
Thank you.
I don't know. I think if I had to guess, it was probably 1,000 to 1,200.
Yeah, I think it was 1,000.
Anybody else?
Awesome. Thank you, John. The next one is Judy. She's over there, right? Go with George's. Okay.
So I actually shot this last month for the Golden Hour theme, but I thought it fit this theme also. I just kind of like the smoke coming out of there, and then the little bit of light on the side with the shadow of the fence, and then the reflection in the window also has the reflection of the fence. So, yeah. And I kind of like the way the sun was hitting those metal columns.
Okay, Judy, I thought this was a very nice image showing the rule of odds. You got 3 yellow posts distinguish themselves from the rest of the image, which adds quite a bit of interest. You can change the motion and the impact of a picture by color, so that was well done. There's another group of 3 going vertical, so although not all are the same, it still makes them more attractive and interesting. So you got the 3 horizontal yellow posts and those 3 objects going vertical. And okay, let me just see. Some suggestions I would have. This could almost be 2 images. Taking one of those 3 yellow posts, and but I kept going back to something that Judy mentioned, and that was that fog or that mist or whatever it is up on that top one. So it's almost like 2 images in one. I would watch the edge of the frame for distractions, either by magnifying the LED screen on your camera and scrolling around the edges to make sure there's no distractions. The bottom right here has some sort of a pipe that is bright enough to just keep drawing my eye there, and so it's just on the right hand edge there that I would just crop that out a little bit. The sunshine on the wall and the door draws the eye, and since it is not the main theme, it may be worth having a look at zooming in to focus on the 3 posts and removing the distractions of light, or enhance it a little more and get more of it in the frame. It's just on the edge right now, and it brings your eye over to that right-hand edge and sort of leads you out of the frame somewhat. So if you think it's a point of interest, then put more of it in the frame. And the other issue on this one was you put snow at the bottom there, but only a little bit. So I'm not sure if you meant to put the snow there, or again, if it's an item in the image that you want to showcase, then I think we need to see a little bit more of that snow. Otherwise, overall, it's a good image showing the rule of odds, and it sounds like Judy had fun shooting it. So, thank you, Judy.
So, thank you. Any other questions for Judy or suggestions? We'll take critique from anybody. I think in a way, if the right side was cropped in a lot closer, like, to kind of get that danger sign out of there, that might add some, I don't know how to say, strength to the image in a vertical image. Even more of a vertical, it might feel more taller, if you know what I mean. But that's just something to try. I have no idea. Okay, we'll go to the next one. This one is Ralph's.
Almost took them out. They're no longer pink, they're all white now. Yeah, idea of thirds and all that, and trying to just working in my backyard, standing on my tippy toes, trying to get the right depth of field, and I think I got what I wanted to get. I wanted the focus to be on the pink flowers and try and get like the branch net out of focus. Greens and pinks worked out well, so yeah, I'll be happy with it. Now George can talk about it. Ha-ha.
Thanks, Ralph. Okay, I thought this was a great subject showing the 3 pink roses, so it definitely is the subject of this image, and it captures the theme very well. It's got a blurry background, which enhances the subject. Everybody had great depth of field in these images this week, so it's good to see, because it separates the background from your actual thing that you want people to look at. I very much like that blurry leaf leading us to the flowers. So that one right at the bottom, right? I like the fact that it's blurry because it creates depth in this image, and it draws my eye into something that's sharper. And so that's the other way to create visual interest or getting the eye to move around the photo is go from blurry to sharp, sharp to blurry, blurry to sharp, etc. So I think, I don't know if you planned that on purpose, Ralph, but I'm pretty sure you did. So, and I think the other interesting note about this picture is it's got beautiful contrasting colors. So the pink flowers and the green foliage and the mostly white background is something that is very attractive. So some suggestions are the three flowers are not on the same plane, hence only the front flower is sharply focused. And so for those of you shooting this, you could solve that by increasing the f-stop. But if you do that, you do at the risk of bringing the background into focus. So you got to be careful and play with that. The other way is to just move around the flowers until they're all on the same focal plane, if possible. And I'm not sure how you'd manage this on an iPhone. Did you shoot this on your iPhone? Ralph said he thought he didn't think he used the iPhone. I didn't see any EXIF data on your image, so I didn't know what it was. Anyways, overall, I think this is a great image, and it's got nice contrasting colors, and it's pleasant to look at. So well done, Ralph.
Any other questions? Comments? George, you said the front flower was in focus, was the sharpest, right?
The three flowers, I think one of them's in focus, the other two they're not on the same focal plane,
Yeah.
So they're a little bit blurrier.
Yeah. I think when I looked at it, I was trying to figure out which one, and I think it's the very front one, the shortest one. That, to me, is the sharpest, that one. And then if you go across, the leaf over there is kind of the same plane, and they're the sharpest thing.
That was the sharpest.
Yeah.
The one on the right.
Yep. And I think there's a little bit of, I want to say, tension there, because your eye wants to go to the biggest one, but it's not. It's so close to being in focus, but it's not quite as sharp as that front one. And then so your eye kind of juggles trying to decide if it's right or not, kind of. But pretty, very, very pretty. Like, I love the colors on here. On my screen, it was showing up a lot darker, and I was bumping it up to make it look like this. But this is, I love it. I love the white and with the pinks and the greens. Okay.
It was well done. It just, and it's difficult. I don't know how far away you were from those flowers, but it's difficult to get things sharp when you're close and they're not on the same plane, and it's a real challenge. So
yeah,
I think under the circumstances, this might be the best the person could get, and they're not so badly out of focus and out of plane that it's still very pleasant to look at in this image. So.
Yeah, like I said, it was really hard to tell which one was sharper than the other one. They're so close. And the last one, I think there's one more image.
One more, yeah.
So I really struggled with this. I couldn't find a lot of rule of odd or sets of threes until I submitted this. I sat down on my couch, and then I saw the 3 pictures we have, and then the grouping of plants that we have. So maybe I just overthunk this one, but my biggest critique for myself is I feel like the one spruce grouse is too far away from the other 2, so you have to go too far to see that other one. Coloring was tough because the light constantly changed this morning, but yeah, it was my first experience with these little guys, and it was pretty exciting, and yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, I thought this was a great group of 3. It was easy to tell what the subject is. For me, well, maybe it's not. For me, it was the rear ends of these 3 birds, whereas people would say the faces. But 2 out of the 3 birds' faces are unrecognizable, but every butt is easily recognizable, and they're all similar, and they're all symmetry. They're all pointing in the same direction, and I think to me that was the group of 3 that my eye could focus on. The lighting is beautiful in this image. It's either early morning or evening light. It's a great use of depth of field and to get the background and the foreground out of focus. So it's easier to do that when you got a long lens, is your choice. Blair used the 400 millimeter lens at f6.3. That's probably the lowest f-stop you could go with that lens at that time. But or maybe you got that 2.8 you could have used. Anyways, it's well processed. There's nothing is oversaturated, and the white balance appears correct, as seen from the white feathers on the rear end on the right. So I think it's a great use of color to create depth. And what I mean by that, I'm going to just walk up here. And so you got dark, you got light, you got dark, you got light, and then you got dark again. So it actually helps your eye move through that image when you have those layers of brightness and darkness. Suggestion, there's only one bird's eye that's visible. That's the one on the left. That's probably why I focused on the rear end of these 3 birds, because they're all sharp and they're all visible, and the other 2, their heads are either eating or doing something different. So the option is just to take a lot of pictures and wait them out until they pop their heads up, but that's everybody's dilemma when you're out there. So, and I think that's good. Overall, this image caught my attention as soon as I opened it. And the color, the depth, the lighting, the subject were all superb and made me pay attention to this picture. So thanks for that, Blair.
Any questions for Blair?
Yeah, there's probably 30 there. And actually, to talk about f-stop and stuff, I did actually stop down just so that I could get kind of from tip to tail in focus, or else it would have just been, the heads. So that was intentional. And I knew I had a lot of distance behind the subject to the, back to the foothills there, so I didn't need to sit at 2.8 or whatever I needed to be at. This was south of Fort McLeod.
And was it
This was a 4 a.m. morning. Yep.
4 a.m. Wow. Gorgeous lady.
Early bird gets the worm.
Nice shot of a difficult shot.
Easy shot. Yeah, this is one of probably 900 photos. Laying on my belly, just shooting away. Good experience.
That's what I like is the perspective of it that you got down low. So you look like you're on the, field with them. So that's really good. Love it.
And I worried about their tips of their tails hitting that back line as well too.
Well, when they really move, I know I've watched them. It's hard to get an eye on them.
Okay, awesome. I believe we're ready for our break.